What would you do if the people you trusted most turned their backs when you needed them the most? My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I lost everything: me children, my family, my hope, and how I clawed my way back to show the world the truth. It was a cold February night when my world shattered. My triplets Ellie, Noah, and Grace were born prematurely, each weighing barely 2 pounds. Their tiny bodies fought for every breath in the neonatal intensive care unit, fragile as glass. My husband, Tom, and I spent every moment by their sides, whispering prayers, holding their delicate hands through incubator walls. We were a team, or so I thought, until the weight of it all became too much for him. Tom's parents, Margaret and Richard, were our rockers, so I believed. They brought meals, sat with us, promised we'd get through it together. "Family sticks together," Margaret would say, her voice warm but firm. But promises are fragile things. 2 months into the triplets' battle, Tom broke. He stopped coming to the hospital, stopped answering my calls. One night, I found a note on our kitchen counter: "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." He was gone. I was alone, except for my babies, fighting for their lives. I called Margaret, sobbing, begging for help. Her voice was cold, distant. "We can't carry your burdens, Sarah. This is your fight now." Richard didn't even bother to speak. They stopped visiting, stopped calling. My in-laws, the people who swore we were family, abandoned me when my triplets were dying. The hospital became my home. I slept in a chair, my body aching, my heart breaking. Ellie's lungs were the weakest, she needed a ventilator. Noah's heart struggled, and Grace, sweet Grace, fought infections that came in waves. I poured every ounce of myself into them, reading them stories, singing lullabies, willing them to hold on. But the universe doesn't always listen. Ellie slipped away first, her tiny chest stilling under the weight of her fragile lungs. Noah followed a week later, his heart too small to keep beating. Grace held on the longest, her eyes meeting mine as if she knew I needed her to stay. But one gray morning, she was gone too. I buried my children alone, their 3 small caskets side by side, while the world moved on without them. Grief is a heavy thing, but it's also a fire. I could have let it consume me, but something inside refused to break completely. I moved into a small apartment, took a job as a night shift cleaner, and started piecing together what was left of me. That's when I met Clara, a nurse who'd worked in the NICU during my triplets' final days. She found me one night, mopping the hospital floors, and recognized me. "Sarah," she said softly, "I never got to tell you how strong you were." Her words cracked something open in minute hope, not yet, but a spark. Clara became my unexpected ally. She'd seen everything in the hospital, knew the truth about what happened. One night, over coffee in a diner, she dropped a bombshell. "Sarah, did you know your in-laws pressured the hospital to reduce your triplets' care?" I froze, my cup trembling in my hand. She explained how Margaret and Richard had called the hospital repeatedly, claiming I couldn't afford the mounting bills, suggesting the doctors let nature take its course. They'd painted me as unstable, unfit, a burden. The hospital hadn't listened entirely, but the seed of doubt had been planted, delaying critical treatments that might have saved my babies. I was furious, but Clara's revelation gave me purpose. I spent the next year digging, gathering evidence. I worked with a lawyer friend, pro bono, to access hospital records. I tracked down nurses who'd overheard Margaret's calls, doctors who'd felt pressured. It was painstaking, soul-crushing work, but every document, every testimony, was a brick in the wall I was building. My in-laws thought they'd buried me with my children, but they didn't know I was still fighting. The twist came when I found Tom. I hadn't seen him since he left, but I learned he was living an hour away, working as a mechanic. I confronted him, not out of love, but for answers. He was a shell of the man I'd married, haunted by guilt. "They told me you were giving up," he whispered, tears in his eyes. "They said the babies were already gone, that you were dragging it out for pity." Margaret and Richard had lied to him, manipulated him into leaving me, into believing I was the problem. Tom wasn't innocent, made his choice, but their betrayal ran deeper than I'd imagined. With Tom's testimony, my case grew stronger. I wasn't just fighting for me anymore, I was fighting for Ellie, Noah, and Grace. I filed a formal complaint against Margaret and Richard, accusing them of interfering with my children's medical care. The hospital launched an investigation, and the truth began to unravel. Nurses came forward, records were exposed, and the local news caught wind of the story. My in-laws, once pillars of their community, faced public scrutiny. Margaret tried to spin it, claiming they were protecting the family, but the evidence was undeniable. The day of the hearing was a year to the day my triplets died. I stood in a small courtroom, facing Margaret and Richard. They wouldn't meet my eyes. The judge reviewed the documents, the testimonies, the call logs. I spoke last, my voice steady but raw. "You didn't just abandon me," I said. "You abandoned my children when they needed you most. You took away their chance to live, and I'll carry that forever." But today, the world knows the truth. The hospital settled out of court, admitting to lapses in judgment influenced by my in-laws' interference. Margaret and Richard faced no criminal charges. Grief isn't a crime, but their reputation was shattered. The community that once adored them now whispered their names with disdain. Tom apologized, begged to rebuild something, but I walked away. Some wounds don't heal, and some bridges stay burned. I used the settlement money to start a foundation in my triplets' names, helping families with premature babies afford care. Clara joined me, her kindness a light in my darkness. I visit my children's graves every Sunday, telling them about the families we've helped, the lives we've saved. I tell them their mother is still fighting, not with anger, but with love. What does it mean to lose everything and still stand? It means carrying your pain like a badge, not a chain. It means taking the truth and wielding it, not for revenge, but for justice. My in-laws thought they could break me, but they didn't know my strength. My triplets may be gone, but their light lives on in every step I take, every truth I uncover, every family I save. And that's a truth they can never take away.